Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
Welcome, everyone, to Morning Magazine for this October 6th, 2021. You have your host, James J. Malouf here, and we are joined in studio today, not only by our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. I want to say good morning to them, and Kev and the gang over there, but we also have our Wood County Sheriff's Department in today. Welcome in, Sheriff Becker. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you here. And you brought in Kate with you here.
I did. She is not a stranger to the show. No, Katie says is a full-time police officer down in Rome. And the reason why I wanted to bring her is we've talked about this before on the show, but our crisis intervention training is going on again for our local law enforcement officers, something that we started as a team several years ago. And we're at our 10th class. And I'm really proud to say that we've moved forward in this direction by continuing this training that, I had mentioned before. When we started sending deputies, one in particular, Doug Christensen, to training, CIT training, down to, I believe he went down to Madison. And then we sent other folks down to like the Appleton area. I might have that mixed up, but we were sending everybody around the state for this training. And then Katie had the idea of, why don't we put our own together? Because then we can expose our local law enforcement officers to, the community stakeholders, the people that we're going to interact with, and we, are out in the community working with people that are in crisis. They're having some mental health concerns or issues, and we get called like typically on a welfare check. And this training was identified many years ago that, hey, this is something that we need. And it's grown, and I'm really proud to say our 10th class.
That's awesome.
And so we're up well over 250 local officers have gone through this training, and it's going to continue. And what's been gratifying to see the last few classes is law enforcement officers coming from outside the area. That says that we've got a really good reputation in what we're building, that other law enforcement agencies that are from many counties away, or even from Milwaukee, are coming up to our training. And that says a lot about what we've put together, what Katie's put together, and we've kept it going. Even with a career change that Katie had recently, she's kept this training going. And the silver line for us is now she's back full-time as a law enforcement officer locally here in central Wisconsin, and she has a very supportive police chief. So we can continue this with Doug Christensen, that now is in that role of the mental health deputy, also having a big part of this. But she's been the foundation of getting our local law enforcement officers, our sheriff's department people into CIT, in the state, and then building the training that we have right now. So I'm really excited that we're on our 10th class, and that's why I brought her along.
Proud of our area, proud of this. Very happy to hear it. Katie, first, thank you. Thank you for this. Like many people, me, my family, mental health has been on the forefront for us our whole lives. It's just nice to see that the society is getting around to this. And certainly since Sheriff Becker in the couple of years, him and I have been talking to hear that our law enforcement agencies are so aware of this and working on this too. So it doesn't feel like many of us don't feel alone anymore. We feel like this is a topic that we can talk about in loud voices. We don't have to hush our voices anymore and that kind of thing. It's people like you and taking the initial, taking the brunt of some of this stuff sometimes early on in the process, where years ago when it wasn't looked at that way. And I can't imagine, some of the flack you might have taken or what have you. But I also understand this is probably not something that you just woke up one day and it just hits you. I imagine early in your career, you probably noticed mental health as an issue. Is that the case?
Absolutely. So I actually started my career down in Grant County, Wisconsin, and then moved to Appleton, Wisconsin, where I was a full-time officer there. And I was fortunate enough to work with John Walschlager, who was a community resource officer over there. And he pulled me aside after one call and said, "Hey, Katie, you kind of could have done things a little bit differently there." And I was very naive to the world of mental health. I wasn't aware of this, and I was fortunate to actually go through CIT training over in Appleton. I was in the 7th class that was held over there, and that was back around 2009, I would say. And so from that, it really opened my eyes to the fact that this training is out there for law enforcement, that it's needed, that there is a different way to approach law enforcement. It doesn't change any of the original training we get. Obviously, there are going to be times where law enforcement is needed and scenes are not safe, and CIT tactics aren't going to be the most appropriate.
Yeah.
But this is another tool that they can have on their tool belt. It's another way to approach a call. It's another way to have more understanding, to show empathy, and to be able to connect these individuals to resources and other community supports, rather than filtering them into our criminal justice system and into the legal system, where they're probably not going to get the services that they necessarily need, and it's probably not going to resolve that situation either.
And that seems to only add to that whole revolving door thing, that
Absolutely.
kind of, certain type of person.
Absolutely.
So really cutting that off at the pass, really, by doing this. I know that we're early in the process. You mentioned 09, you first things and stuff. So we're still very young into this. We're not even in a teenager when it comes to this subject really yet. As a society really diving into it, along with all these different factions, law enforcement and that. Have you guys already seen some evidence of this being beneficial?
Absolutely. So Shawn alluded to my transition professionally. I was previously the Emergency Mental Health Services Program Manager for Wood County Human Services, and I oversaw the crisis program. And I was in that position for 7 years. And the growth of the relationship between law enforcement and crisis, when I first started, getting law enforcement to even have a meeting with me or to talk with me was challenging at times. And the fact that I had that law enforcement background and was able to essentially speak the language. I was able to communicate with them in their terms and on their grounds, and understand where they were coming from. But after I had transitioned from Appleton and some other positions, I actually went and got my master's degree in counseling. So I actually have my background is in community counseling, and so I'm a licensed professional counselor and a clinical substance abuse counselor. And so I have that licensure and training behind me as well. So I was able to kind of translate that language back to law enforcement and really help them to see how this could be beneficial. And so Shawn and I had started talking. He mentions Doug Christensen, who is now our mental health deputy, and we had a lot of challenges there because he was frustrated with the process, and he was frustrated with the way our community was responding and the community partners were responding, and he didn't understand kind of that back and forth. And so once we were able to give him this training and help him kind of bridge some of those gaps, he grasped onto this, and he's a prime example of a deputy who went from hating to work with crisis to now he embraces it and is really the namesake for the sheriff's department in handling those calls. And so we've seen that not only just in Doug, but in the departments. And Shawn already mentioned we've trained over 250 officers. There's 25 officers in this class. We have officers from Rome Police Department, Portage County Sheriff's Department, Stevens Point Police Department, Rapids Police Department, Marshfield Police Department, the Sheriff's Department. And we actually have 2 that have come all the way over from Door County.
Wow.
And so we're seeing, a number of people. Our classes are always full. We had been offering the class twice a year. Going forward, we're going to go down to offering the full class once a year, but then do some advanced trainings to give them some additional skills and training in topic areas that are relevant to this and kind of refresh on some of the things that they would have covered in CIT. But it's definitely been an overall change in just approach and willingness to learn this. And we still see some of the officers who are, we lovingly say, voluntold that they have to be in the class. But by the end of the week, even if they didn't choose to be there, they have taken something away from the class, and it's something that they can apply to their careers. And we talk a lot about their own mental health and the toll that it can take on officers and how they can reach out for help and make sure that they're taking care of themselves as well.
I'm so glad you bring that up, because that was something I wanted to pivot to eventually. And before I go there, and I wanted to ask Sheriff Becker if he's seen examples too, but you are one heck of an impressive human being. She's just really, I can talk to you every day.
Thanks.
I'll get your number.
When it comes for you, Sheriff, have you seen examples of this being beneficial, diving into this topic now with CIT, all these things?
Yeah, most definitely. When you identify the community stakeholders, that are so important and relevant to the calls of service that we're talking about. Yeah, there's been a huge difference. Number one, with communication with the people that we've identified that are going to be coming to the table when we have a situation where, hey, somebody needs help. All right, and then law enforcement, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what you want to look at, gets called to a situation, and now that the deputies and law enforcement officers have gone through this course, they're going to know, okay, some things to watch for, to look for when speaking with people that are in crisis. And then knowing those stakeholders who to communicate with, crisis intervention, giving them a call and saying, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we've been told. So we've been seeing a lot of improvement, a lot of better communication and identifying the people that are those key stakeholders, and then even expanding from there. The community is paying attention to this. There's no doubt in my mind as we started to move forward with this years ago, people are watching, what's going on and how we're training our law enforcement folks and, the mental health side of things. So, and I could tell you right now that there's a big reason why the community is watching and leaders in our area, community leaders. We got a grant position, a local position that's funding a mental health deputy, Doug Christensen, that is really, focusing on these calls of service, making sure people aren't falling through the cracks when law enforcement is called to, such as welfare checks and crisis calls. What can we do to be better? And that's his job now, a big part of his job. So that tells me that when the community is funding a position like that, they're paying attention.
I was doing some homework this weekend for our discussion today, and I didn't know you were going to be bringing Katie in. But one of the things that it's kind of funny how there are no coincidences. Things just happen for a reason. One of the things I was diving into and doing a lot of homework on was because I saw a story about our soldiers and how high the suicide rates have gone up for soldiers, whether they're currently active, but especially those that have quote unquote retired. Although we all know soldiers never really retire; they always keep doing something. So that caught my eye, and leading from that article, it went into also police officers and the rise of suicides for police officers. And why is this topic not something I've heard of before? Why this is a huge issue, and yet I hadn't seen anything talked about it or anything. So I started diving into it a little bit more, and it immediately came back to one of our first conversations about mental health and how important it is. And all I think about is the citizens. But I got to think that doing these studies, doing these classes, looking into this, certainly, it first and foremost helping, the people, your community and everything. That's your job. That's what you do. It's why you did this and everything. But it's got to also come around to you guys as well and helping each other out as well in your own personal lives. Because we've all, spoiler alert, everybody's got something going on upstairs.
Absolutely.
We all do. There ain't nobody walking around perfect here. Let's all be honest about this. Mother Teresa even had something,
Right.
We've all got something. The more aware you are of that, the more you can attack it, the more you can, figure out, okay, well, I've got this, but how can I live with it? What can I do about it? Mm-hmm. So that advantage to me seemed like a really cool, happy accident, almost part of this, where it all stems from helping out the, citizens more. But I got to think that one of the, advantages of this, or one of the healthy silver linings is that. No. Have you guys seen that, or is that something that you're aware of too, or you thought about a million times already, and I'm just coming to the party now on it?
No, absolutely. We actually have portions of the CIT class that focus on officer wellness. Some of our presenters come in and talk about their own experiences, and we have some very brave officers who share their own personal stories with mental health of things they've experienced or gone through. And so it really allows officers that opportunity. For a long time, there was a stigma and a shame for officers to say, hey, I need some help. And that's not even just law enforcement. That goes into all of the emergency services professions, police, fire, EMS, frontline, your nurses, your doctors, anybody, where all those professions are handling terrible incidents on a regular basis. And so, we really address that subject. We also discuss our critical incident stress management team, or our CISM team that we've developed here locally in Wood County, and it's a opportunity for us to respond to one another to help debrief some of those incidents and provide some of that support. And I'm fortunate to be on the Department of Justice's regional peer support development team, and so we're working on developing more for peer support for other law enforcement agencies and just our officers in general, because we recognize that a healthy officer is going to be able to provide the best service to the community, and that includes their mental health.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good to hear.
Just said what I was going to say.
She's good, man. She's good.
No, I know. No, what I'll follow up, though, on that is what I've found in the leadership positions that I've had at the Sheriff's Department. If we can't provide, officer wellness or the support for the people that are out serving the community, how can we expect them to help people?
Right.
We have to have that avenue out there that there is some support for the deputies and law enforcement officers out there that if they are struggling with, whatever a call it might be. It could be anything from a death scene to a welfare check to a theft complaint that triggers something that somebody struggles with. And if you don't have the avenues there of support, how can we expect them to help the community? And that's on us as leaders, as law enforcement leaders. That's on us if we can. That's why we have a great chaplain program. We've expanded our peer support program because we're not looking for if somebody's struggling on our team. I'm not looking for them to come to me to talk to me about it. I think they're more apt to talk to a peer, a coworker that has gone through maybe some training and is willing to listen and just, hey, let's work through this together. And if that's not helping, then we've got to have some other opportunities out there, whether it's a chaplain or somebody through our employee assistance program or something even more than that. I mean, as long as we have the opportunities there for somebody that, hey, if they want help, it's there. And we can move forward. I think it makes the team 10 times better to serve the community.
Absolutely. It makes the community stronger, you guys stronger. I heard a quote when I was a kid, society is judged on how it treats its elderly and its youth. I think that the modern equivalent of that is those things as well as how we treat our public service people, how we treat everybody from the fireman to the police officer to these things to our soldiers. That is kind of in there with that, I think. And really, what are we doing here if we're not treating these people that are doing so much for us the right way? It's not asking a lot. It's not like they're asking for anything other than what you would give anybody else, really. Is there anything else you think people should know about this, what we're talking about here, or we want to touch on with the subject?
I think the only thing that I would offer to the community to recognize is that as these officers go through the training, they're all awarded a pin, and Shawn's actually got it on his uniform there. And so it is a identifier to indicate that an officer has been through CIT training, and they're all issued one of those pins at the end of the training to signify that they've completed the 40 hours of training. And we ask that officers wear these pins, not just because they completed the training, but because they believe in what the training stands for and that they're willing to be one of those advocates for mental health. And so the community can ask and request if they're calling in for service, hey, is a CIT officer available? Now, I can't always guarantee that somebody's going to be on shift or that they're going to be available, but it's definitely something that they can be aware of and recognize that if an officer with that pin shows up on their uniform, that they've had this training.
Thank you for that. That's interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah, and I probably wear mine. I went through my first year as sheriff. Is when I went through the CIT course, and I probably wear it.
Right on. Yeah. Thank you both. Great discussion. Appreciate all that. You guys are done now. No,
Let's go.
We got more to do. Yeah.
As we sprint out the door.
Well, I'll tell you, Kevin and I were all set to do an interview together if you guys didn't show up. So, I mean, if you need a break,
no, we're good.
The day job comes first. So, if something comes up. We do know that we got a lot of things we want to touch on throughout the next half an hour. But one of the things I wanted to make sure we touched on was the Run with the Cops for Special Olympics. It's going on tomorrow from 4 to 8 over there. Going to be meeting at the Moravian Church at 310 to First Avenue South in Rapids. You can find out more by going to SpecialOlympicsWisconsin.org. I'll give that again before we wrap up. I was fortunate enough when I was in Santa Barbara, out in California, to be a part of Special Olympics a bit, and they did a Run with the Cops out there.
Oh, sure.
And this is before you and I get to meet, and you get this version of me. That version of me back then had been in his early 30s and still had not had a good interaction with a police officer. So I was more of that, like, feeling guilty even though I didn't do anything kind of thing, in that realm. And it was really a big part of that event. It got me to where I am now with this, where I got nothing. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I feel nervous around him or something like that? He knows everything about me. He knows better than probably more than my parents do in some ways. I got nothing to hide. I got nothing to worry about. It got me being around those officers, and part of the reason for that is all on them. They were more so reaching over, asking questions, talking to me. And it's crazy. I hope you're sitting down out there. It's like they were just normal people. It's so weird. I know you guys are staggered by that, but it got me on this whole path of where I am now and seeing this and understanding that badge doesn't change the fact that you're still an American citizen. You're just like the rest of us and everything, and treating people like that with that respect.
No, it's great that the event's back. I know it's still we're going through some weird times right now, but seeing all the, the events coming back, this is one that I was hoping, would. Last year it didn't happen, but it's going well. Good amount of registration. A lot of sponsorships are coming in. That connection that law enforcement has with Special Olympics goes way back.
Yeah.
That's a strong partnership that I've been proud that our team has been connected with for so long, and just to get the opportunity now to see these events start to come back, and what's just gratifying for me is seeing the athletes out there just with the smile on their face, and so many law enforcement officers out there. My daughter Jordan used to work for Special Olympics, and this was one of the events that she brought here to this community. And so now that it's back, I'm even a little bit more personally proud of it because it's continuing to go on. But yeah, tomorrow night it's going to happen. Looks like the weather, I'm hoping, will hold off. We'll have lots of representation from local law enforcement from around the community. Big shout out to Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. Liaison Officer Herman Oliveras has done an outstanding job. Check out our Facebook pages and the commercials that have been put together. And they're like last minute, hey, you want to come down and shoot a commercial? I'm like, yeah. And then we just kind of throw in some lines, and he does the editing, thankfully, but there's probably going to be a blooper reel coming out here sooner or later. But Herman's done just a fantastic job pulling us in between the police department and sheriff's department. Cole Cleworth, no stranger to the show, came in today, and we did some interviews. So we'll have a new commercial coming out here shortly. Cool. So yeah, everybody that's participated in that, just at the last moment, a couple people say, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" "Oh, nothing." "Well, why don't you meet us over by Lincoln High School while we want to film a commercial?" Like, okay. Yeah. But they've done an awesome job. So a huge shout out to Herman, and if you get the opportunity to check out the videos and the commercials on our Facebook pages, please do.
Oh, yeah. There's nobody who's doing social media better than police, fire, sheriff departments, like all these like throughout the whole country. The videos and everything, they're doing it right. They got these down.
Try to keep it positive. There are people that'll troll the page no matter what.
Oh, yeah. You're always going to have that.
It is what it is, but we like to, as everybody does, hey, let's keep it positive. Let's, show what we're doing out in the community. And just like I said, Run with the Cops, we'll probably have tons of pictures tomorrow night. And yeah, if you've got nothing going on, please come out tomorrow night and support Special Olympics.
Well, I've been fortunate, and I'm sure you guys as well, worked with a lot of different organizations. I've never worked with better people than Special Olympics. I've never met or worked with people that are so you're there to volunteer, you're there to help out, and they're trying to figure out how to help you. It's like, no, I'm supposed to be here helping you guys. Like, they're just such giving, wonderful people. Yeah. You mentioned the smiles, and immediately 1,000 smiles popped in my head of that particular night, and looking forward to tomorrow night so much, especially because of what you said before, that we didn't have it last year. No. And not missing a year of this. It's all well and good, and certainly the outlying reasons behind it are wonderful. Bridging that gap between community and officers, and that is very important. But this is an event to raise awareness, to raise money for Special Olympics, and a year of not having that, it can put a dent in your funding. It can put a real hurt in that. And one of the organizations, no organization deserves it, certainly, but especially Special Olympics, especially those guys. So I am challenging our community. I'm challenging all of our listening communities. I want a better turnout than we have ever had for that tomorrow.
Thank you, James.
Otherwise, you got to deal with me, people. and let me tell you, my Jewish guilt is strong. It's very strong. So, we just want to have a good. And look, you're going to be happy that you went there. You're going to enjoy yourself tomorrow night. It's a fun event. This isn't like suit and tie kind of have to be a certain way. No, it's just everybody just having fun, having a good time.
And there'll be lots of light up devices.
Oh only a couple. Yeah, we'll have our our MRAP, their armored vehicle out there. It seems to be a really big hit in the community, and lots of fire trucks, squad cars will be out throughout the whole course of the 5K, I believe it's a 5K. And you can be competitive. It is a timed race, or you can just come out and walk it. It's either way. It's a great family event. Also, like I said, if you want to compete against other people, please do. And there's some serious runners out there. Yeah. And I'm not one of them. I want to make that very clear.
When you got to run for a living half the time, I mean, it's understandable, but you're right. That's one of the things that makes it such a perfect event. It's a 5K run walk. It's, you can have either one and each their own how you handle it, but just show up. Just show up, be a part of this. You can still be a part of it. The 5K run walk is $25. The kids run is $15. Again, you can find out more by going to SpecialOlympicsWisconsin.org. SpecialOlympicsWisconsin.org. What we'll do, we'll take our break, get that out of the way. We'll come back and we'll have some more conversation with our friends at the Sheriff's Department right here on Morning Magazine, AM 1320. You're listening to WFHR. Looking at those local temperatures, no real changes out there for you. 59 in Stevens Point, 60 in Marshfield, 61 in Wausau, and here in Wisconsin Rapids. Well, we have our Wood County Sheriff's Department in with us. We have Kate. Thanks for being here, Kate. And Sheriff Becker in with us as well. Of course, our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, Kevin, the gang. Appreciate them being here as well. So, Sheriff, is there somewhere you wanted to go next with the conversation?
We've got an event coming up, another fundraiser for another really important part of law enforcement. That's the Wood County Crime Stoppers. They do an annual event again with these events coming back. We've got one coming up on October 28th. It's a Thursday at 5:30. The Britons will be performing a concert, and what I have here are a couple sets of 4 tickets. These are free if somebody wants to come in, and I'll even sweeten the deal here. I'll throw in one of our department challenge coins, and I also have a poker chip that was made especially for our 10th CIT class.
I was wondering about
that. So if somebody wants to call in, they get 4 tickets. You get the challenge coin and the poker chip. They just got to stop down at the station and get them.
Excellent.
They don't even have to ask me questions. If they want to call and hang up on me and then call back and talk to Pam, that's fine too.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, but a great event that, like I said, now with events back, this is a really big fundraiser for Crime Stoppers, and that we've had that organization part of Wood County for a long time, but I have to look, but it's been probably well more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And we get tips all the time. Going back to the days when I was an investigator, we get tips from, thefts, burglaries, drug information, all the way up to homicide. One of the homicides that I was working on, how we broke that case was, through an initial tip from, Crime Stoppers. So, a very important, organization that is connected with law enforcement, not just the Sheriff's Department, everybody here, all of our law enforcement agencies within the county. We appreciate the support for this program, and please support. Sorry, I'm running over my words here a little bit, but please support Wood County Crime Stoppers. Again, we've got a couple sets of 4 tickets here that we will give away. October 28th, the Britons here at the PAC Center, Wisconsin Rapids.
The Lance Plidmo was in when we had him in to talk about some Wood County board issues and everything, and he told us about these tickets, gave us some to give away too. We'll do that during Over the Back Fence probably next week.
Sure.
But one of the things he mentioned along with this, we do want to encourage people, if especially if you haven't done this already, look into being on the Crime Stoppers board.
Yeah.
They're looking for good people to be on that board, and as long as you're getting these tickets, it's not a bad thing. Take a look at it, see if it might be something that works with you.
Yeah, and if you have information, please call us. And this is something that you can remain anonymous on, and you can be paid. Depending on the information you have, you'll get paid for it, and you'll still remain anonymous, and we'll make sure that you get the funds.
It's there's some stuff, especially with what you mentioned there. I appreciate you sharing that. There's some things that you guys are really in the dark if we don't make these calls. And you can't have it both ways. You can't expect justice and not help. It's one of those things. It takes a work. It takes a village to make a lot of these things happen.
Yeah, people know information, whether it's, a burglary, and like I mentioned, all the way up to a homicide. People know when those crimes unfortunately aren't solved, somebody knows something. And this is an ideal way to provide it, where you can remain anonymous. Maybe it's somebody that you know very well, or very intimately, and you want, you feel guilty, you want to provide the information. This is a perfect way to do it. And it's not even about the money either.
Right.
No, it's about moving forward and solving a crime that should be solved.
Well, and how many times do we, whether in our own personal lives or we see a story, and I cannot even imagine how many times you yourselves have seen this or dealt with it, where the person that we know is guilty or whatever, and they get off or what have you because of a slight thing here or there.
Technicality.
You don't know if that tip you're giving is the difference between that. You know, you never know.
No, you don't.
It's that much more important. You'd rather give the information and have it just be extra than not have it and not have that information.
Yeah, somebody knows something. And like I said, even going back to, tragedies that are not solved, somebody knows something.
Yeah.
And again, this is an ideal way to get the information to us to look into it.
Doesn't I joked about this before. I remember watching the original like CSI show and Law and Order, and I'd watch them like both in a row or something, and think, how do anybody get away with anything? Why do people try to commit crimes anymore? You can't get away with
Which
nothing.
they wouldn't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'd like it if you guys were really bored. If you guys had nothing to do, basically.
I agree with you.
I joke with Deb all the time from the Family Center about that. I'm like, Deb, I wish you didn't have a job. I wish you were doing something else. We didn't need you. When it comes to that, though. That is, all joking aside, that is a big part of not only police work but of justice, of the judicial system, is citizens, making these tips, making these, getting this information to you, informants, all these different things. They all play into it and make it work. We ask a lot of our police departments, of our sheriff departments, of our people in the service industry. There's got to be some give. There's got to be a little bit of that too. One of the things that I've been encouraged by, and I'm really glad this came up actually, because a couple of weeks ago I was talking to a friend of mine who still lives in our old neighborhood back in South Chicago. And growing up, well, you didn't snitch. Nobody snitched. Didn't matter. It didn't matter if it happened to you or your best friend or whatever. Oh, you never talked to the cop. That has changed. That is not the case anymore. They have finally realized, whether you're talking about an inner city or talking about a town like Rapids here, that if I want my community to be safe, I've got to help. I've got to do something about it. I can't just sit here and expect you guys to do all this and then complain when, hey, how come my neighborhood's not safe? Well, what did you do to make it safe?
Right.
Did you do anything? Did you help at all? Were you just turning a blind eye to things, or were you actually doing something? People are taking much, and I'm just talking about my old neighborhood. I don't know even a block away or other neighborhoods or other major cities, but I can say there that it has finally come around to like, wait a minute. If I'm tired of this, I got to do something about it. So these things go a long way.
Yeah, they do. No, and we appreciate the community support and input.
One other thing that I wanted to touch on, and I will take the lead on the details on this because I don't expect you got enough notes in front of you and everything. But the community bike ride is coming up with Sheriff Becker and Chief Peterson. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. This is a fun one. It's going to be at Lake Wazicha at White Sands Beach coming up next Thursday, October 14th. Ride's going to kick off at 6 in the afternoon, so that's nice. That's a nice time of day to do it, especially this time of year.
Yeah, we did one a few years ago over by the zoo, and that was well attended, and then it was brought up again recently, and I'm like, sure, why not? I'd love to do it.
Where did this idea come from?
Hannah Wendell's. She played soccer with my daughter, Caitlin, and now she was an intern with the health department at the time. And now she's full-time with the county. But she had Hannah come up with, I think she needed to come up with a project for a degree, and reached out and said, hey, would you be interested? I'm like, sure, yeah, absolutely. So she never forgot about doing this. And she now, with her full-time position, wanted to revisit it and reached out to Mel and I. I'm like, yeah, why not? Especially, you look at Lake Wazicha, how ideal of a place it is to just either walk or bike around. Like, yeah, why not? So, yeah, it was her idea. So, thank you, Hannah, for keeping it going. And, I've been doing a little more cardio recently just so I can make it around without oxygen. I'm going to try.
It's hard to ride a bike and an oxygen tank at the same time. It's difficult.
No, I got a sidecar.
Nice.
Again, another community event that wasn't my idea. And it was really nice that Hannah didn't forget about it and reached out. And yeah, it would be a great time, especially if you look at the fall colors. Should be really, really nice or pretty out in the area during, going through the park and everything. I think it's a great opportunity for people to get out and interact with Mel and I and the rest of the community. It's
a perfect time of year to have this. Any chance to be outside, I know I'm taking it, and plenty of the community is. I don't want to say that the run with the Cops for Special Olympics is a wonderful cause. We spent time on that, talking about it. We could spend the whole show talking about it. We all the three of us are such fans of it and encourage people to take part in it. What I like about this event is that it just has the one kind of theme. It's just kind of focused. It's not about raising money. It's not about doing this or that. It's just that one theme of getting people out, getting people to interact with you and the chief and these things, and kind of building that bridge even stronger. We're pretty fortunate in this area that we have a pretty strong bridge between these, but it can always be better. And it's not one of those things that you want to. I don't think you can afford to take your foot off the gas on this subject. I feel like going forward as a society, especially, we've all got to be aware of this. And the better we work to make these bridges stronger, the better it's going to be for the next generation. Because that's what I'm thinking about. I don't really worry as much about my generation or the people ahead of me or even below me necessarily as my kids, their kids, that kind of thing. Getting it to a point where when my kids are my age, this is hardly an issue. It's hardly a thing. It's something that is so common. That bridge is so strong.
Yeah. No, it's and it also illustrates the working relationships that the law enforcement agencies have within the county. Being that Grand Rapids Police Department will be involved with the Sheriff's Department, I'm really proud of that.
I was curious
the
about
relationships that we have within our law enforcement agencies, especially in our backyard within our county. I'm very proud of the fact that how well we work together. Something else that came up recently, just to segue into, Wood County Sheriff's Department, Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, and Marshfield Police Department, they all have a SWAT team, special response team. And we've been for years talking about combining them. It just makes sense. A lot of other counties do that, especially smaller counties. And here we have 3 larger agencies with, with SWAT teams. And we felt that, right now is a good time to really seriously look at combining the teams. And I think that'll provide, in fact, I know a better service to the entire county. And then even taking it further from there, and it really revolves around those positive working relationships. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about it right now, honestly. But expanding it further. Chief Peterson brought up a really good point recently as we discussed it at a local law enforcement leadership meeting. What about the smaller departments? If there are officers that are qualified and want to be part of this, and I have no problem with that. I mean, there's obviously a cost associated with anybody being part of the team because the equipment is not cheap. But, Chief Peterson had a great point. He goes, well, you know what? It'd be nice to have opportunities out there for the smaller agencies so they can keep their officers. Because what's happened a lot, especially with our agency, we're hiring people that either came from Grand Rapids Police Department or a smaller police agency. But now if we have, opportunities where they can join us, that's a cheap investment for the equipment, isn't it? And now you're keeping, your team, with your department. And we're all one team, essentially. But here's an opportunity, and I thought that was a great point.
Really?
So we're building that foundation of at least the 3 teams. Hopefully, this will happen in the beginning of next year, and then we can continue to expand that. So everybody's got an opportunity to be on that TAC team.
That's a really, really incredible. Has this been have they done any stories on this? Has there been anybody reaching out?
Not really. We've been talking about it a little bit more right now.
Okay.
We put together a mutual aid agreement. The leadership on each of those teams is phenomenal. I mean, again, it doesn't start at the top. It works within the teams themselves that can work together. Then that leadership, and then pulling the information together. You have to have mutual aid agreements. A lot of work has been put in this by all 3 departments. You can tell that there's a strong want for this to happen. And as an administrator, it just makes sense. And both police chiefs feel the same way from Marshfield and Wisconsin Rapids. So I think we got a great opportunity moving forward to see this happen.
I think that, for those that have been paying attention to a lot of the bigger cases in the last couple of months that have been happening in this state, you've been seeing, if you look at the details, you're seeing how important it is for precinct to precinct being able to communicate. I think one of the things that I'm most impressed by with this generation of officers and people that we're seeing in these positions now is the lack of ego. The idea that, we're going to get our due. Let's just get this taken care of. Let's just make sure that we're helping these people or getting this person locked in or whatever.
Yeah.
It's gotten away from what I grew up around, and all of us did, where it didn't matter if you were where you grew up in this country. There was an ego there. There was a bit of whether you called it ego or not, there was, well, my department needs funding, so I've got to make sure that my case, amount of cases that I'm getting, it's understandable, I think, in some ways, of why there was an ego there. Everybody's fighting for, state dollars and things like that. Now it's gotten a lot better.
No, that's a great point, because an ego can really derail leadership. If somebody values their ego more than the team or the organization, then it really inhibits, somebody's leadership, and you have to be very open-minded. And that's why things like this are happening, combining, and it's not just our special response teams, but you look at the bike ride, I'm proud to say that Chief Peterson and I are going to be taking part of that. Yeah. That just shows the strong community and working relationships that our local law enforcement folks have, because when you have a major incident, who do you count on for help?
Right.
And you can't have an ego there.
Nope.
You need people there to help work as a team. Doesn't matter if you're in brown or blue. We're all one team.
I'll never forget being a kid and hearing about the Richard Ramirez case out in California, and how he could have been caught months earlier if one department doesn't have an ego and want to be, we got to be the ones that make this case. You know?
It doesn't matter.
Little things like that, how many times that happens, and it doesn't happen nearly as much anymore because of this lack of ego. And you know what? It doesn't matter who gets credit. Let's just get this guy locked up. Let's just, take care of business.
Yep.
I think that in doing that, it's also brought people a lot more around to, I can trust officers, or I may not know this person, but they have a badge. I trust them. There's a little more of that from society when we see that that's the case. The other thing I didn't think of about this is what you mentioned there about you and Chief Peterson. That not only are you able to share information and all those things that's important, but going back to the mental health issue, here's another group of people that there's only one group of people that know what you guys go through. It's the people that do the same type of job. So being able to communicate with them on other levels, just on a friend level even, is got to be an advantage too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool to hear. Again, the community bike ride is coming up next Thursday at October 14th. Ride starts at 6 o'clock over at beautiful Lake Wazeech at White Sands Beach. Meet them down there. Grab your bike. You can meet at the River Riders Bike Share Station in the parking lot at the White Sands Beach. Bring your own bike or rent a River Riders bike and share a bicycle.
Sounds good.
Yeah, get on down there, and you can find out more
Bring
by
a helmet.
Yes, bring a helmet. Yeah, boy, you don't want to. You might want to be, making sure that you are obeying the laws when you take part in this. I would think.
Yeah, make sure it fits. At the last community bike ride, I think either Channel 7 or 9 came and did a nice story on it, and I had my helmet on, and during my interview, it kind of looked small, and one of the fellow coaches, John Russell. I'm going to let him know that I mentioned his name. I coach football at Lincoln High School, and he's our defensive coordinator. Does a phenomenal job, and I'm proud to be part of it. But he did his own play-by-play of when he's rewinding the interview, and he made a big point to say that he didn't think my helmet fit my head. So thanks, John. I didn't forget that, and I have a new helmet. So.
Oh, you do? Okay, that was the big question today. Okay, you do have a new one. All right.
Yep.
We've got about 8-9 minutes left here and everything. Where do you want to go next?
Well, we can update on the jail. That project's moving forward. Right now, we're going in a couple different directions. We're designing the facility right now with the project manager and architect. And we got our team at the Sheriff's Department, obviously have a big part of that. Ruben Van Tassel, our grounds manager, also helping with that because the new jail and Sheriff's Department will be on the courthouse campus. So that's in process right now of putting things together and designing things and getting recommendations from other counties that are going through the similar process right now. I believe that there's four or five counties that are doing something similar to what Wood County is. So yesterday we had a conference call with Trumpeldor County. Obviously not as big of a facility as what we're looking at because their inmate population, I think they're building jail around 90 inmates, and we're looking at 300. But a lot of the concepts that they're looking at really fit with what we're moving forward with. Our electronic monitoring program, that was really utilized not only, we've had an electronic monitoring program for a long time. We probably used it quite a bit more with COVID times because we're limiting who was coming in and out of the jail. A lot of our counties are doing that too, and finding that space available to run that program is a big part of what we're doing and moving forward. We've got to make sure that we have an area that we're calling day reporting, where people that are in custody but on EMP can come in and meet with a probation officer, our potentially our criminal justice coordinator, our jail discharge planner, and our EMP coordinator. needs to be have a certain part of the jail and making sure that we can accommodate that. That was a big discussion yesterday, and the concepts, no matter what size the county are or is very similar. So that's moving forth. And then the city of Wisconsin Rapids is part of the team because we need to work with them to vacate Avon Street. And also some rezoning. So we've been going to a lot of the city council meetings as they discuss the project, and we welcome them to be part of the team and part of input as we move this project forward.
Are there any challenges that you see or that have come to light that are new or different or just things that you already knew were going to be?
Not many knock on wood challenges. It seems that everybody is, looking at the project, and there's a lot of community support with it. I mean, there was no secret, from when we started discussing this 3 years ago, or around 3 years ago, and it even dates back 20 years ago, that the need was there, and our county board did a phenomenal job looking at this. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't the sheriff's department idea. It was the county and the county board looking at this. Hey, we've got an issue here.
Yeah.
From overpopulation, costs, the building, and then, interest rates, a lot of things came together, and I give our county board a ton of credit for the way that they approached this. Now, the second part of it is working with the city of Wisconsin Rapids, because the jail is going to be, in the city and connecting to our courthouse. So we welcome them being part of the team, and their input is going to be very valued. And so that's the next phase of this project.
I know I'm interested to hear. It's interesting to hear that, because when this topic first really came about, and even before you and I had a chance to talk on it, I think like a lot of people, the community was 50-50. Maybe a little more in favor than not, but for the most part, 50-50. And as the more we talked about it, the more the subject got reported on. Now, when I hear feedback on people, I hear nothing negative about it. I only hear people talking positively about it. The only, the closest I could think to a negative is some people wondering about, well, I'm going to have to take a different route to go to my job or whatever, little things, little inconveniences, nothing major. I'm not hearing the bigger things that I was hearing a year and a half, 2 years ago about it.
Yeah, no, there'll be, with any larger construction project, there'll be some, headaches. That's the unfortunate part of, the progress with this project. But that'll take about 2 years to get through, and Wood County will be far better with the completion of a new jail and sheriff's department. Bottom line, I mean, that's where we looked at projecting things 50 years out and comparing staying the same or moving forward with a new facility. That's where I think a lot of people understood that, wait a minute, we really have to do some forward thinking here and think about the future needs. And I think that was a big selling part for some of our county board members and the community. Once you illustrate that and with facts, it's like, oh, wow.
When you have the data in front of you, and especially, and I think a lot of society, I think a lot of people especially are starting to come around to a number of different things. When we first started talking about this, one of the first things I thought of was our soldiers. We don't blink an eye about putting money into defense funding. We don't think twice about that. Add more and more and more. Give them whatever they need. But as soon as you stop being a soldier, and we look at, well, we need to put this amount of funding in VFW and in the VA and all that. Well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure about, we all of a sudden, we start pulling back, or we don't put enough. We should be putting even more money into that, you would think, but we don't take care of it. You can't have one without the other. You can't ask people to go fight for our freedoms, and then when they get done and they come home and not take care of them. We can't ask you guys to do the job safely, to take care of us, to treat us right as citizens when we are knuckleheads or whatever, and then expect you guys to, take care of all this in a building that is not proper, that is not safe, that doesn't work. You can't have it'd be like asking you guys to go out there and do your job completely. But I'm going to take that gun and I'm going to take that vest from you. And you know what? Yeah. Maybe you get a horse. Maybe no car for you either. And those handcuffs, you don't need those either. Those are really, they weigh you down. You can't have that. You can't have both. I think it feels like, especially in this community, people got that. People realize, maybe I don't want to pay more in taxes, but if it means we have a safer community and our officers say, it adds up. It makes sense. I'll pay the extra taxes or whatever, Not to say that is the case, but any of this stuff that comes up, it's one of those give and take kind of things.
No, I completely agree with you.
So we were giving those away.
Yeah. So if anybody calls in, we got 2 sets of 4 tickets to the And they can call in after the show.
Sure.
2 sets of 4 tickets to the Britons on October 28th. With those tickets, we'll give a challenge coin, a Sheriff's Department challenge coin that was designed by staff.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Oh, it's a great story. I know we talked about it before, but we wanted to put together a challenge coin a couple of years ago, and our staff came up with our core values. And on one side of the coin, that's what we have, our core values, and it says Deputy Sheriff on it with the state seal on it. And the other side is really cool. It's got our patch on it with a blue line going across it. And there's stars going around the whole coin. And each star, and this wasn't my idea, okay, it was actually Captain Hugesteiger's, represents a city or a township or village that we patrol within Wood County.
Oh, cool.
So
that is
so
cool.
the staff came up with this, and I'm proud to give them away when we have them. And if anybody calls in after the show and would like the coin, along with our CAT poker chip, and like I said, this is our 10th class that we're working on right now, and I'm very proud to talk about that with Katie. It's something that we work together on along with many other people, but she basically has been the foundation for the program, and 10 classes.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. Thank you so
really
much.
Is. Thank you, Katie. Thank you. Appreciate you not only being here, but what you do for us and everything. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
You as well, sir. Always good to see you.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Stay safe and strong out there, you guys. Appreciate you. And Cav, appreciate our friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, as always. We'll talk again next month.
Sounds like a plan.
And we got to bring you back in. We'll find an excuse to bring you back in, Katie. Thank you again both for being here. We'll have more Morning Magazine for you tomorrow right on AM 1320 WFHR.